Three things happened in the last 72 hours that most people still don't fully understand. First, an American B-2 stealth bomber, the most lethal aircraft ever built, dropped a bunker buster bomb deep into the mountains of Iran. Second, the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway responsible for 1/5 of all the world's oil, was blocked. And third, the man who controlled Iran's most powerful weapon disappeared. What you're about to watch is the story of 7 days. 7 days that didn't just change the Middle East, 7 days that changed the math of global power. Forever. Stay with me. Because by day 4, you'll understand why the U.S. military did something it has never done in modern history. And by day 7, you'll understand that what most people are calling the end of this crisis might actually be the beginning of something far more dangerous. To understand how we got here, you need to understand one thing that most news coverage completely gets wrong. The conflict between the United States and Iran has never really been about nuclear weapons. It hasn't been about terrorism or oil or ideology. Though all of those things matter, at its core, it has always been about one place: the Strait of Hormuz. Look at a map. The strait is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, 21 miles. But through those 21 miles flows the lifeblood of the global economy. 17 million barrels of oil every single day. Saudi Arabia's oil, Kuwait's oil, UAE's oil, Iraq's oil, Iran's oil, all of it, every single drop, moving through one narrow channel. And Iran sits directly on the northern edge of that channel. For decades, Tehran has understood what America's military planners have quietly acknowledged in classified assessments. Iran doesn't need to win a war against the United States. It just needs to shut down that strait for 30 days. 30 days. That's how long it would take to trigger a global recession that makes 2008 look like a rough Tuesday. That leverage, that single geographic fact, is why Iran has survived decades of sanctions, military pressure, and political isolation. Because everyone, including Washington, knows that a real war with Iran isn't just a Middle East problem, it's a world problem. So what changed? What finally pushed both sides past the point where that calculus held? The answer begins on a Tuesday, in a mountain bunker, and with a decision that even Iran's own leadership didn't see coming. At 2:14 in the morning, Tehran time, the ground shakes. Not an earthquake. The Fordow fuel enrichment plant, Iran's most hardened nuclear facility, buried more than 90 meters into a mountain in Qom province, takes a direct hit from a GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, the largest conventional bomb in the U.S. arsenal. A weapon designed specifically and exclusively for one purpose: to destroy facilities that cannot be destroyed any other way. 22 seconds later, a second bomb follows the exact same trajectory into the same hole, driving the explosion deeper. Then a third. At the Pentagon, a spokesman confirms the strike within the hour. The statement is 47 words long. It says the United States, in coordination with Israel, conducted precision strikes on Iranian nuclear infrastructure in response to Iran's refusal to comply with international agreements and what U.S. intelligence described as an imminent weaponization timeline. In Tehran, the response comes not from the government, but from the streets. Within 90 minutes, thousands of Iranians are outside the Swiss embassy, the building that handles U.S. diplomatic interests in a country where America has had no embassy since 1979. The chants aren't just angry, they're organized. Here is what the news channels didn't tell you about day 1. The Fordow strike was publicly announced. Deliberately, that's unusual. Strikes of this sensitivity are almost never confirmed so quickly. American military doctrine almost always allows ambiguity. Not this time. This was a message, not just to Tehran, to Moscow, to Beijing, to every nation watching. We did this. We're not hiding it. and we're prepared for what comes next. What comes next starts before sunrise. Iran's military doctrine has a name. They call it the mosaic defense. The idea is simple but devastating. You don't fight back in one place. You fight back everywhere simultaneously, using every asset you have: drones, missiles, proxies, naval forces, cyber operations, all at once across multiple theaters so that your opponent cannot concentrate their response. Day 2 is the mosaic defense in action. At 6:08 a.m., Iran fires a salvo of Shahab-3 ballistic missiles toward U.S. air assets in Iraq. The Al-Assad air base, the same base that Iran struck in 2020 after the killing of General Soleimani, takes incoming. This time, the strikes are more accurate and heavier. 12 U.S. service members are wounded. 2 are killed. At 7:43 a.m., a swarm of Iranian Shahed drones, 140 of them, launches from multiple positions inside Iran and from proxy forces in Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. They move toward Israeli territory, U.S. Navy vessels in the Persian Gulf, and Saudi oil infrastructure. Israel's Iron Dome and David's Sling systems intercept most of them. 3 drones reach the Abqaiq oil processing facility in Saudi Arabia, the same facility that was struck in 2019, and detonate. Abqaiq processes 7% of the world's oil supply. By 9 a.m., oil prices have jumped $22 a barrel in a single session. But the move that changes everything on day 2 isn't the drones. It isn't the missiles. It's what Iran does in the Strait of Hormuz. At 11:17 a.m., the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy deploys 47 fast attack craft and 3 submarines into the Strait's main shipping channel. They're not attacking vessels. They're just there, positioned. A message written in steel and seawater. We can close this anytime we choose. 1 tanker, the Stena Mare, a Liberian-flagged vessel carrying Kuwaiti crude, stops dead in the water, refusing to move through the gauntlet. Then 2 more tankers reverse course entirely. By noon on day 2, the Strait of Hormuz is functionally closed for commercial shipping. The global economy has just started bleeding. On day 3, something happens that is more significant than any missile strike. Iran's supreme leader makes no public appearance, no statement, no television address, no Friday prayer sermon. In 35 years of leadership, Ayatollah Khamenei has never gone silent during a national crisis. Iranian state television airs only Quran recitations and archival footage. The Foreign Ministry says he is in deliberation with the Supreme National Security Council. But Western intelligence agencies monitoring communications traffic out of Tehran notice something alarming. The volume of encrypted communications from the Supreme Leader's office has dropped to near zero. Not increased, dropped. I need you to understand what this means. During a crisis, command centers get louder. More communications, more orders, more coordination. The fact that signals intelligence is detecting less traffic, not more, from the most important address in Iran means one of 2 things. Either Iran has switched to a communications protocol so secure that even the NSA's systems can't detect it, or the man at the top of that address is no longer in a position to communicate. And this is where Mojtaba Khamenei enters the picture. The Supreme Leader's son. A man who has operated almost entirely in the shadows. No formal government title, no military rank, but within the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard. He is regarded as the true architect of Iran's strategic posture, the man who decides what the missiles are actually pointed at. On day 3, for the first time in years, Mojtaba Khamenei appears on Iranian state television, standing in military uniform, surrounded by Revolutionary Guard commanders. He speaks for 4 minutes and 11 seconds. He does not mention his father. He does not acknowledge the strikes on Fordow. He says only one thing that matters. and the translator in the NSA's Farsi division goes pale when she reads it aloud. He says, "The time for warnings has ended. What comes next will not be aimed at military targets." Not military targets. Think about what that means. Here is the thing about Iran that most Western audiences fundamentally do not understand. Iran has been preparing for a direct conflict with the United States for 25 years. Not with aircraft carriers, not with stealth bombers. Iran knows it cannot win that fight. They've been preparing with the weapons America didn't take seriously until it was almost too late. Cyber, proxy networks, asymmetric maritime warfare, and one capability that Pentagon planners have classified as a Tier 1 threat since 2019, Iran's ability to attack the U.S. power grid. On the morning of Day 4, at 4:51 a.m. Eastern Time, substations in 3 American cities experienced simultaneous failures: Houston, Dallas, Phoenix. The kind of cascading failure that the grid's automatic systems are designed to prevent. Except these failures don't follow any natural pattern. They're precise, coordinated, surgical. By 6 a.m., 2.3 million American homes and businesses are without power. The Department of Homeland Security immediately classifies the event. CENTCOM is privately briefed by 7 a.m. Publicly, the White House calls it an infrastructure incident under investigation. But here's what makes Day 4 the most critical day of the 7. It's not the power outages, it's what they prove. Iran has been inside American critical infrastructure systems for months, possibly years, waiting. Not breaking things, just watching, mapping, learning every vulnerability. And on Day 4, they chose to turn the lights off in 3 cities just to show Washington they could. Which means the real question isn't what Iran has already done. It's what they haven't done yet. What are they waiting for? What's the trigger? And when U.S. Cyber Command's analysts work backward through the attack signatures on Day 4, they find something that changes every calculation in Washington. The attack didn't originate in Iran, it originated in Venezuela and Cuba, and 2 addresses in New Jersey. The Mosaic defense has cells inside the United States. On Day 5, President Trump makes a decision that every one of his predecessors chose not to make. He orders the United States Navy to formally blockade all Iranian ports. Every vessel entering or leaving Iran, military, commercial, humanitarian, is stopped, inspected, or turned back. The announcement comes at 10 a.m. Eastern. By 10:17, the UN Security Council has called an emergency session. By 10:45, Russia and China have both condemned the blockade as an act of war. By noon, the price of Brent crude oil hits $180 a barrel for the first time in history. The European Union issues a formal statement demanding an immediate cessation of hostilities. France deploys 2 frigates to the Persian Gulf, not to fight, but to escort European-flagged commercial vessels. Germany announces emergency energy rationing. Japan, which imports 90% of its oil through the Strait of Hormuz, calls an emergency session of its parliament. And in Beijing, China's foreign ministry uses language that Washington hasn't heard in 2 decades. They describe the U.S. blockade as an act of piracy against the international community. Here is the strategic trap that Day 5 creates. And this is something almost no one is talking about. Iran can't sustain a conventional military campaign against the United States for more than 30 days. Their fuel reserves, their ammunition logistics, their spare parts supply, all of it degrades fast under sustained combat. But the blockade doesn't just hurt Iran, it hurts everyone. And the longer the blockade continues, the more pressure builds. Not on Tehran, but on Washington. Every day the Strait stays closed, America's allies in Europe and Asia grow more desperate, more willing to negotiate separately with Iran, more willing to break from the American position. Iran doesn't need to win on the battlefield. They just need to outlast the coalition. And they have been training for exactly that scenario, for exactly this long. On day 6, U.S. satellites pick up something at the Natanz nuclear site that triggers an immediate situation room convening. Ground vehicles, heavy lift equipment, and what thermal imaging analysts describe as the unmistakable heat signature of uranium hexafluoride, the precursor to nuclear weapons-grade enrichment, being moved, not destroyed, moved. Iran is relocating its nuclear program, dispersing it, making it impossible to destroy in a single strike campaign. And more alarming, among the facilities receiving new equipment is one that U.S. intelligence had previously assessed as purely civilian, a site that has never been on a targeting list, a site in a city of 2 million people. This is the moment that national security historians will study for decades, because on day 6, the United States faces a choice that has no good answer. Strike the new dispersed sites, and accept that civilian casualties are now unavoidable with all the international consequences that follow, or accept that Iran will successfully conceal a reconstituted nuclear program that within 18 months produces a nuclear weapon. The Joint Chiefs present the President with their assessment at 2:40 a.m. The NSC debate lasts 4 hours. At 6:17 a.m., as the sun rises over the Persian Gulf, a decision is made. And it is not the decision that anyone in that room wanted to make. On the morning of day 7, the United States and Iran reach a preliminary ceasefire agreement, brokered through back-channel negotiations in Oman that had been quietly running in parallel to the military campaign since day 3. The terms are not made public, not fully, but from what leaks in the days that follow, the shape of the agreement becomes clear. Iran agrees to halt uranium enrichment above 20% and allow IAEA inspectors back into all known facilities. The U.S. agrees to suspend, not end, suspend, the naval blockade after 72 hours. Frozen Iranian assets are partially unfrozen. Sanctions relief is offered, conditional on verification. On the surface, it looks like diplomacy working, like a crisis managed. But here is what the ceasefire announcement doesn't say. The dispersed nuclear material was never recovered. It was never destroyed. It's somewhere in Iran right now, in locations that the IAEA has not yet identified, and that U.S. satellites cannot confirm. Mojtaba Khamenei, who appeared on day 3 in military uniform and said, "The time for warnings has ended," has not made a public statement since the ceasefire was announced. The cyber sleeper cells that attacked the American power grid on day 4 have not been neutralized. They are still there, still active, still waiting. And somewhere in the mountains of Qom, or Natanz, or a location no Western intelligence agency has definitively identified, the program continues. 7 days. That's how long it took to rattle the global economy, push 2 nations to the edge of open warfare, and force a ceasefire that resolves almost nothing. 3 things are now true that were not true a week ago. 1. Iran has demonstrated that it can strike inside the United States without firing a single missile. The lights went out in Houston and Dallas because Iran turned them off. Every critical infrastructure operator in America is rethinking everything. 2. The Strait of Hormuz is open again, but every government, every shipping company, and every energy market on the planet now has permanent proof of exactly how fragile that opening is. And 3, the nuclear question, the one that started all of this, is further from resolution than it was before the bombs fell. 7 days, and the world is less safe, less certain, and less prepared for what comes next than it was when those 7 days began. The only question that matters now is this: is this the ending of a crisis, or the prologue to something that makes these 7 days look like a warning shot? Tell me what you think in the comments, because this conversation isn't over, and neither is this story.